Another windy day today. Just looking at my calendar, and we have a lot of queens that are out probably trying to mate today over the last few days, and we have a lot to mate ahead of us too. Looking at the long range, and it's not looking too optimistic, but there's not much I can do about that. We just have to let nature take its course, and I don't know. An old beekeeper once told me, which I'll never forget. I was kind of fussing over my queens and whether or not they were going to mate. I was checking my queens on day 14 or day 18, I forget about how many days after they hatched. And I was just saying my queens aren't mating and I'm just going to have to shake these out. And he said, Ian, you got to remember that these are old German bees. They take their time, so give them 25 days. And I don't know, I don't give them quite 25 days, but I give, if we have weather like this where it's really windy and maybe we've got some rain and cloud coming ahead of us, I might give them 20 days, 22 days to, show themselves. Whether or not, I'll have to shake them out. But his words remain in the back of my head, and I've always kind of run by that. I don't try not to get in too much of a hurry when judging these nucs, these queens while they're mating. I just kind of like, we got to let nature take its course, but at the same time we got to whip ourselves to schedule because we got a business to run here too. Any rate, I'm going through right now. I have the crew out doing other jobs, and I'm just getting a little bit ahead of them before they come and join me. But these are the hives that we shook down yesterday. And I'm coming through and I'm collecting the nucs now. I'm just going to show you the process and how that part is done. You might notice I'm showing a little more video these last couple of days and process and such. And I wasn't a week ago through the main split. The main split is very intense, very busy. We work like a true 15, 16-hour days. Just pushing to get through it. It's the main split. If we have any interruptions or any problems, we get so far behind with all these dynamics going on at the same time that we could lose colonies to swarming. We have everything lined up and timed just precisely, so I didn't have time to think about anything else, let alone making videos. So I'll just kind of push through that work. Now we're going through and we're just skimming off nucs. This is a little more casual, a little more laid back, not as pressing. We have a little bit more time on this. We're just kind of taking down the big ones by maybe a frame of brood and maybe 2 frames of bees, something like that. It's not like we're splitting these colonies in half just to manage that glut of strength. In these colonies, the space I have up on top, I gave them a honey box, okay? But when I put that honey box down, I took the 3 frames of honeycomb out of the center and I dropped 4 frames of brood just to keep everything tight. And my idea was, as you know, this is a common theme on this farm, I allow that queen to then move up into this space up top here and lay out the brood and establish a little nest in those brood frames. And that's exactly, in fact, what she's been doing. She's moved up into those brood combs and she's laid those combs, I'm seeing 2 to 4 frames full of eggs and larvae. The problem is I'm not giving her enough time. We're a little bit behind right now. I just want to hurry things up a little bit just to keep things going. We have cells that are due every day we got to make use of, so I'm just kind of pushing the cart ahead just a little bit. So what we're doing is we're going down and we're finding a good frame of brood. We're bringing it to the top. We're taking one of these frames of eggs and we're dropping it back down. So we're just kind of taking brood up and just dropping some eggs down. So then there's 1 frame of brood up top. We then, if we haven't found the queen, then we take this whole box, shake it down to the bottom, because we make no attempt to find that queen. Put this queen excluder in. So we did this yesterday. The bees will have gone up through. The queen have stayed down. They'll cover that brood frame and provide me some bees on those brood combs. So what I want to do is I want to take that brood comb out Very important not to use smoke on the colony because we don't want to drive the bees down. We want to keep the bees on the brood comb. So I'm just going to dig down. Here's one frame of bees with some nectar. Here's the frame of brood we decided to pull up from the bottom. So between the three frames, between the three brood frames, there should be enough bees to be able to maintain that brood frame there. We've got to make sure we have enough bees in here to be able to cover and allow this brood to fully emerge. Very important. Okay, so my little nucs made up. I put a frame of foundation in as a place taker, and this just allows me to keep this nuc tight, keep the frames tight so they don't make a mess, and just to give the bees a place to drop a whole bunch of energy. If we all of a sudden made a unit that's too big, they have a lot of young bees all of a sudden, a lot of resource coming in, they'll slap a lot of energy down to build out this frame of foundation. Just buys me some time. Then I take my 3 honeycombs that I took out earlier and I drop them down. My honeycombs are 9 frame spacing. Oh, and then I also got to take out my excluder. Remove my excluder. So then if the bees grow and the queen wants more space to lay in, she can come up top here and lay within both these boxes. My honey flow is likely, like we are the first week of June. Things are really far behind, so we're looking first week of July before we get any substantial amount of nectar coming in. So I just want to make sure that that queen will be able to develop her nest in 2 boxes throughout this very intense swarming period. This is the period when we got to try to provide the environment to keep these hives from swarming, and the easiest way to do that is you pull a brood and you give her lots of space. So we've managed this population. I'm thinking there's like 4.5 frames of brood down at the bottom. Now she's going to have space to lay up top here, and this hive is done. So we'll close them up and we won't visit these guys again until the nectar starts flowing in, where we push that queen back down. We actually might make another round through the whole apiary after we're done this round, just to balance out the apiary. Take down maybe some of these queens have gone up because they're a little bit stronger than we anticipated. We could shift a frame of brood into maybe a hive that is a little bit smaller, okay? Just to balance things out, shift things around a bit. Another nuc done. Onto the truck. Here's a frame that is full of larvae. So this queen was quite ambitious by the looks of it. This is a frame full of nectar. Quite the nectar flow going on right now finally. If it wasn't for this wind, these guys would be absolutely packed. Frame of larvae. So she had obviously come up, and if we were able to give her a little bit more time, we could just let that brood develop, get capped, and we wouldn't have to have pulled that brood from the bottom. Okay, so that's done. Frame of foundation for a place taker. My lid. Onto the truck. 3 honeycomb. Can't forget the excluder. And let them go. So that's my process. It works extremely well. These hives have balanced out just perfectly. I kind of think of this method as being a little bit like brushing your hair. You take that brush, like I have daughters, they have long hair. If you try to take that brush and straighten it perfectly the first time through, you're just gonna yank knots and they're gonna be screaming, nobody's gonna be happy. You can't do it. You gotta do it once, twice, 3 times. You know, just take out the biggest part of the tangle the first time, straighten it out the second time, and just even things right out the third time. And that's kind of what I'm doing with this split. I'm just kind of going through first time, going through the second time, going through the third time. And each time I'm targeting just a very specific area of growth, very specific on what I'm trying to achieve. And after I'm done, everything is evened out, everything is straight, everything is smooth, and the apiary just looks beautiful.